Yo, what's going on, guys? My name's Tom, and welcome to my third Halo podcast. On this episode, I'm going to be talking to Sk0ls. He's a Halo montager slash content creator, and he's also the guy responsible for ordering the single Halo clips top 10s. As always, the video is pretty long, so check the video description for timestamps and the social media links of my guest. So, you're the person behind ordering these single Halo clip top 10s. What variables do you take into account when it comes to selecting and ordering these clips for the top 10s?
The main thing that I focus on is that I want to make sure that the 10 best clips are in the top 10, and maybe a few of the clips in the middle are a little disorganized, like maybe 7 could be 5 or 5 could be 6. But the core thing is that the 10 best clips made it in, and that the best clip in the month is absolutely the number one clip. And it's tough for me because I have to be objective. You know, I obviously have a lot of strong opinions about which game clips are better than other clips and how that, you know, whatever relates to anything. The thing that helps me a lot is I like to stream it. I like to be as transparent as possible because sometimes I'll be honest, like when I'm watching a Halo 5 clip, I have no clue what I'm watching. And it just looks like a whole bunch of nonsense to me. And so I have to stream it so I can get feedback from players who know more than I do. And that type of being objective is not something that I typically am comfortable doing. You know, I'm a pretty hard-headed guy, but at the end of the day, it's about the community, and I want to make sure that the community has as much input as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really important too, because I think a lot of people would look at a clip. If you feel a certain way towards a game, you tend to like devalue it. So you might see like a high Halo 5 multi, but you might not understand it fully. So you ask people who play Halo 5, and then you could kind of rate it based off that.
Yeah, and there's another side to that too. There's obviously times where I'm watching a Halo 2 clip, and Halo 2 is obviously a game I'm very familiar with, and I'll watch it and I'll underrate the clip because it's not like my personal taste, or it's something that I like objectively look down on, I guess, or subjectively look down on, I should say. So there's definitely another side to it too. It's not just about not knowing. Sometimes it's about knowing too much and being a little too harsh.
So, I mean, speaking of clips, you've always been a very big advocate of competitive clips. You know, obviously everybody values competitive clips more, especially on big names. But tell me about your mindset when it comes to quote unquote social versus competitive clips and montages. Like, what do you prefer and like why?
I obviously prefer competitive clips, and I think a lot of people want to hear the opposite side of that. They hear me say that and they think, oh, Sk0ls hates social. And I understand why people might feel that way. I've been super hard-headed about this in the past, and it's always been, within the community, it's been one of the topics that's been the most polarizing. When I go back to when I first started seeing social, and we obviously didn't call it social at the time, that's something that developed through Halo 3. But you go back and you watch stuff like Nakamura's M1 and Rippon's M1 for Halo 2, and even going into 2006, you have videos like Lithium's, he called it a nubtage. You know,
yeah,
that's what social was called. And it was a way to, when you're thinking about what those videos were trying to achieve, there were just certain things within the competitive meta, within the competitive frame that you couldn't achieve. Like, no one was going to hit a Jaro in 06 in 4v4, you know what I mean? But in social, in these Rumble Pit games, you could explore more of what the game had to offer. And so that's how I've come to view social over several years of battling with people and being hard-headed about it. I respect social, but only as much as the content creator is going to give me. So a clip can absolutely be social and be great, but it has to be doing something that I can't find in 4v4 or can't find in a competitive clip. If you're just taking 1v1s with bad kids and winning every single battle, that has zero appeal to me. So originality is obviously very important. And it sucks to kind of have this marker because it's obviously super biased of me to say this, but I feel like social, you have to put more of an emphasis on being original and trying to push that bar because you don't have the fallback of playing against talented players.
To kind of piggyback off that, I think when you watch a social montage and you see AFKs and you see players running in a straight line, that right there is something that should probably never be in a montage. Like, if you put AFKs in a montage, like, you either have to heavily edit it to make it look like they weren't AFK.
Which makes it look manufactured in its own right.
Yeah, correct. When people are running in straight lines, I mean, some of the best montages of all time, like, I mean, I could talk about Campy Apex. Yeah,
it's interesting that you mentioned Campy as well, because I remember when the first Halo 3 movie competition was happening, and the big debate, I think really early on, people knew that it was going to be Campy Apex and Duality in the final. And even as social got more established and people like Campy had obviously been farming a lot of social clips, there was a degree of repetition in terms of high-level multis that we had never seen before. Even for this day, there were 6 Killionaires, 6 Nairs in 2009. That's just unheard of. You just don't see that. In like the last Nair on the pit, it's literally
that was one of my favorite clips.
180, no scope, no shields, whip Nair. That's the kind of stuff that I look for in social. That's the kind of stuff, I shouldn't even say that I look for it in social. That's the kind of stuff that I look for in clips, period. Yep. Clips that are so powerful, clips that are so potent, that are so fast and awesome that it transcends what game type you're playing. It's just fun to watch.
You could see why the video did as well as it did, even though it was like shitty quality and stuff. Obviously, like, Duality is one of the best. I think it won, right, that year?
It did win. The People's Champion was absolutely Campy. Like, Frag and Campy were both like community members, but I think a lot of people, Campy was more of the hometown hero in that sense. He was certainly the underdog because Duality had this level of production value that made it just look so much more powerful. It was like Michael Bay, you know what I mean? That's kind of what it feels
absolutely.
Like.
I mean, and you got to remember too, in 2009, most people were still capturing in standard def. I mean, most people weren't.
Absolutely, yeah.
Most people were still using dazzles and virtual dub, and there's a lot to be said about that montage. And the one thing that I used to argue with people all the time about Campy is they used to discredit Apex and his montage 4, and I used to say Campy was a really good player in MLG, like MLGFA. He was a very, very good player for a long time. So he could do both, and he was someone who didn't necessarily depend on just playing social to clip. He could clip in 50 high MLG as well.
Yeah, I think it's always worth mentioning. I've had the Apex Duality discussion several times in my life, and I'll probably have it again in the future. The 50 high MLG gameplay on Campy's end for Apex was absolutely top tier as well.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't get talked about the way it should be because it was a social Taj.
Yes.
But it doesn't change the fact that there was some lights out MLG gameplay. And even going back to Halo 2, Campy has always been a killer. On a professional level, I've seen there used to be an MLG game room before they shut that down. That's how old this is.
I missed that, yeah.
There was an upload. I don't think it was Campy, but someone had some of Campy's clips, and a lot of it was from his final. But the second half of this MLG game room video was just clips that Campy had on professionals. BXR frenzies on Roy in Halo 2 in 2007. Like, he had a lot of high caliber clips on some of the best players in the game at the time.
If you go on halo.bungie.net, he had a Halo 3 account called Who Am I, Huh? He had so many wins. I don't think he lost one. I think he might have lost 1 or 2 games. He got an MLG FFA 50, and that was one of the hardest playlists at the time. And he's consistently placing first against, professional players. Yeah, and I also think too, when it comes to social montages, I think there's also the clutch factor. If you're one shot and someone's ARing you and you hit the no scope for a Kilimanjaro, I think there's something to be said about that, depending on the kills leading up to it, obviously. I mean, if you're killing a bunch of AFKs and then you hit it, it's not that special. But if you can connect on big multis and the kills are clutch, even if they're on bad players, if you're getting AR'd by somebody, it's still clutch within itself just to hit the shot.
I think that's a good point to bring up. The big thing for me, like I said, the type of clips that transcend social, competitive, whatever, it doesn't matter. It comes down to expected outcomes. And the more no shields you get, the more aggressive you are, the more reckless you are, the more positions you put yourself in to where it looks like you're going to die. And the clip just keeps going and going and going. And you keep on pulling these kills literally out of your ass. That is just a mindset. That's an idea like that. It doesn't matter what game type you're playing. You can always achieve that.
Oh, yeah. And that's why I love Halo 2 so much, is because there's so much you can do to extend the multi. Obviously MCC has trading in it. I don't consider MCC really Halo 2, but, again, Halo 2 is one of those games where there's so many cool things you can do. And I still think there's unexplored potential in Halo 2. That's why, Hyena's continuously pushing the boundaries in that game with his montages. So I think it's really cool. Moving on though, back in the day, we used to use dazzles and VDub, virtual dub, to record gameplay. And I really do miss those days because it kind of felt special. Like, I remember when I first bought my first capture card, I still have it. It's a Dazzle DVC 100. I think it's the black one. Oh, that was terrible. Quality was fucking dog shit. I mean, compared to Furion, I remember when Furion released Progression. That was one of the best videos I've ever seen just in terms of quality and presentation. But moving on, like, to present day, I mean, how do you feel about the Xbox DVR feature, and like, what type of effect does it have on today's montage scene?
Like most things, particularly pertaining to montages, it's a double-edged sword. There's a part of me that feels very positive about it because I remember how hard it was, like the things that you just discussed, the things that I've been through, VHS recording, having to, go down to the camera store to get your shit converted into a DVD. That's something that I've had that discussion recently. There was a level of commitment that defined wanting to make montages back in the day. And now the other side of that is that anyone can do it. Anyone can capture, anyone can record. And so there's a natural saturation of the market that comes because of that. I choose to believe that Halo, in terms of montaging, is the most accessible that it's ever been. Anyone can be capping, anyone can be recording. It's up to the community to take advantage of that, and whether they have done that or not is, that's just my opinion. But
yeah, I mean, I think those are all good points. I think, it kind of is oversaturated with content. I think that everybody has, because everybody can go on xboxdvr.com or GamerDVR, whatever it's called now, download your clips and make a montage, whatever it is. A part of me likes that, but a part of me is like, maybe it's kind of me just being old and I'm kind of like gatekeeping here, but I'm like, you guys would never last back in, 07. 08.
Oh, for sure.
I
absolutely feel that. I think about where I started and how long I was on the outside for. And it's bittersweet because it sucked being on the outside. There was a level of elitism, and I hesitate to use that word because it has a negative connotation, but there was a level of what you said, gatekeeping and elitism, that kept content pure and that kept content competitive. We had a very small number of outlets. We had forums like Halo 2 forum, later Halo 3 forum. We had FB Walshy during that as well.
Yep.
And we had a small number of hubs that were very exclusive that pushed people to become better naturally because the standards were so high. So yes, it is gatekeeping. Yes, it is elitist, but that's what kept content so high level and so pure.
Just to kind of continue off that, I mean, as far as FB Walshy goes, I remember everybody wanted to have a montage on FB Walshy because if you did that, you made it. Because
that was how you knew. I remember going back to when Halo Forum was just Halo 2 Forum in 2005. That's when I started making videos. Mm-hmm. The original gatekeeper himself was the guy who was running the forum was Z. He decided what content was good enough to be hosted, quote unquote, by Halo 2 Forum. And it was the most gate-kept, closed community in terms of who made it and who didn't. And it's so funny to think back on that stuff, man.
Really, it's survival of the fittest, right? Is what it comes down to. Everyone was subbed back in the day to FB Walshy. That was the main channel. You got a montage up there, you pretty much made it. You were guaranteed thousands of views. Editors wouldn't pick your project up if it wasn't good. Like, the gameplay had to be good, but now you could pay $100 and get your video edited by so-and-so, and everyone's using, After Effects and Premiere and Vegas. In one way, I feel like the Xbox DVR and the new age of Halo players and editors, I feel like it's a good thing because it's more accessible, like you said, but I also think that gatekeeping and elitism in a way, it just keeps things pure. It keeps things like you have to get to X amount of level if you want to get recognition. And it's kind of like, I don't know, man. It's definitely a double-edged sword. I feel like a lot of people are going to disagree, but I think that's kind of how you made it. It's like if everyone in the world was rich and everyone had a Lamborghini, it wouldn't be cool to have a Lamborghini if everyone had one.
And I cannot stress enough, like, the elitism kept it pure. And when I say that knowing full well that if the community had stayed that way, I absolutely would be on the losing end of that. That's something that I've talked about a lot extensively when MCC was coming out. I thought that level of elitism was going to be something that was going to be in everyone's face when MCC came out. I thought we were going to go through a renaissance period. I thought that all the big names were going to come back and everyone was going to be double shotting and all these great editors were going to have access to a level of gameplay in Halo 2 that they had never really seen or experienced before. And I was fully prepared to take the backseat there and acknowledge that all these great people who taught me how to play and who had done so many great things before me were just going to come in and take the scene by storm. And that never happened. And as a result, because we never returned to that level of elitism, our content game is in shambles right now, at least from a Halo 2 and a Halo CE perspective. Oh, yeah. Not that the CE players really give a crap, but for Halo 2 players, I mean, you think about it, it's Bo and Rukio, and those are really the only two people that have made a Halo 2 video worth watching in almost 2 years.
You're pretty well versed in classic Halo, obviously. So what, in your mind, though, separates Halo 2 from Halo 1, Halo 3?
I don't know. It's kind of hard to compare the three games because they're so wildly different. I think the core of what it is for me is what we were talking about when we discussed Halo 2's versatility as a montage game. There are so many different avenues to achieve success, either in 1v1 battles or on a 4v4 scale, on a professional level. There were so many different skills and utilities that were available to you that it made a lot of players have a very unique flavor, and people became known for either this or that or that or that or that. And the list of things that you could trademark as your patented play, it was so much deeper compared to a game like Halo 3, to where it's like, well, if you had a nutty strafe, well, oh, well, SK's already got the strafe, so I guess you're not going to be known for that. Or strong siding, or like Ola is known for having a great BR, but that's like the most generic compliment you could give someone about their playstyle, you know what I mean? With Halo 2, though, you had guys like Shockwave, who the literal oddball master, just the way he moved around the map, the way he got so many kills on the main stage with the oddball. He was literally the king of oddball. You have guys like Gandhi. I guess if you had to equate him, he'd be like Snipe Down, but he had this, his sniper had literal attitude because of how smooth and controlled it was. It was just something that you didn't see. And you think about guys like Ogre 2, who's just the purest slayer out there, but also like the silky smoothest double shotter that you've ever seen. You know, there's so many different levels to what made those pros great, and it's so different from what you have on Halo 3. It just feels more personal and less generic.
Yeah, Halo 2 to me feels like a game that's more reliant on individual ability rather than Halo 3, where it's a game that's great within its own right. Halo 3 is a little bit slower, and I think Halo 3 is more of a team-based game, at least more so than Halo 1 and 2. Halo 1 and 2, you could take a game over pretty much by yourself. It's kind of, I don't want to say that, but like you could definitely do a lot of damage if you're a high-skilled player. You can definitely do a lot of things by yourself. And, you know, again, you look at someone like Walshy, for example, in Halo 2, obviously regarded as one of the best, if not the best Halo 2 player. I mean, it's debatable, but a lot of people have that idea or notion.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you look at Walshy transition to a game like Halo 3 that's more so a team-based game. And Walshy's a very smart player, very good player, and he had success early on in Halo 3, but, you know, eventually got to a point where he kind of bottomed out, whether that was due to a lack of practice or not caring anymore, whatever it was. A game like Halo 1 or Halo 2 specifically, I think those games, they're just so different because they require great amounts of individual skill, opposed to Halo 3, where Halo 3 is more of a team-based game.
No, I agree really strongly, and your point about Walshy is ironic because it was something that I was thinking about in my head. Walshy, particularly in 2006, is known for being a setup breaker. He was going on these massive flanks and getting these huge BXRs and turning the game on its head. And that's how I would characterize Halo 2 as a game that absolutely demanded and required strong team play, but the team play could be countered by an extraordinary individual in the right circumstances. And Walshy just had this timing and this essence to his gameplay that's what made him the literal Captain Clutch. That's why they call him that, because when the game was on the line and people were set up, Walshy was the man to get the kill. He was the one to open up the game. He was ready to go every single time, and that's what made them so exciting to watch. And in his own right, yeah, he's still a very solid Halo 3 player. He got dropped off FB, and then the next tournament he placed second.
What they did, right?
No, I think this was when he was playing with Soviet, Lunchbox, and Roy. This is early 09, I want to say. My Halo 3 history is not super great.
Yeah, because I know he teamed with Nated one event. And he placed second, I believe. I think it was Orlando of 09.
Yeah, that was new Carbon.
Yeah, wasn't that Nated, Walshy, Shockwave,
and then I can't remember who their fourth was.
Yeah, it'll come to me. Because I remember I was watching that event and I wanted them to win so badly.
Well, yeah, it was like
a huge Walshy fan. So.
Yeah, it was like the campy discussion that we had. It was like people who had definitely had their moment in the sun, but it was like the hometown heroes. You were just rooting for the old guys.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that was a fun team to watch. That was when he got the no scope double on Guardian with the snipe.
Oh my god,
People made the comparison between his lockout no scope double and the Guardian no scope double. It was a very popular moment. Yeah, that was definitely on that team.
Yeah, I definitely remember people talking about that, comparing that to the lockout clip. But anyway, you play Halo 2 PC with some of the best Halo 2 players available. Halo 2 is kind of, I don't want to say it's a dead game, but it's definitely a less popular game now. And I feel like there's a big divide between Halo 2 PC and MCC. Obviously, most of the best players in Halo 2 play Halo 2 PC. With the announcement of MCC PC, do you think that macros are going to ruin the art of mastering button combos? Because, I mean, I do personally, but I don't really know because I didn't play Halo 2 PC a whole lot. So I don't know how that worked on there, but...
At a high level, the amount of cheating that happens is... on Halo 2 is almost none, if any at all. And it's so insignificant on the outcome of the game that it doesn't even matter if it is happening because it's so unnoticeable. At a low level on Halo 2 PC, absolutely, you have guys with the free cheats, the $5 cheats, the BXB macros, and the double shot macros and all that sort of stuff. And I want to get up and I want to yell about that, and I want to be infuriated about it. then I think about all the years that I've spent on this game, and cheating has been such a prominent part of my experience. Even going back to 2005, when the popular thing to do was to host bridge or to standby.
Yep.
You know, and that level of cheating is obviously very crude and cavemanish, but it evolves. And I've been dealing with double shot controllers since I started double shotting. It's a reality of the competitiveness of what we do. If it's competitive and people feel like they need an edge, inevitably the least secure people of the communities that we belong to are going to turn to external assistance to try and feel better about themselves.
I would say too, at the highest level, I could definitely see how it wouldn't fly, especially on Halo 2 PC, because you guys are a very tight-knit group, so you guys aren't gonna let some random kid come in your lobby and start fucking, quadding the fuck out of you guys.
Yeah, it's a definite proving ground, and I think that's one of the things that keeps Halo 2 appealing to me, even though I haven't played much recently, is that the concept of elitism and keeping games pure is something that is absolutely still a part of Halo 2. And it's much more convoluted and childish than it should be at times. It's natural. Yeah. We all grew up playing this game. We all have our hubris and our egos. Like you said, that stuff just doesn't fly. We've had enough bad apples. We know what's important to argue about and what's not important to argue about in terms of what is acceptable in game. And absolutely no cheating, nothing like that.
As far as matchmaking goes, because obviously if you're playing, you guys play customs, right? So if you guys search matchmaking on MCC PC, say there's like a Halo 2 Team Hardcore playlist, and you guys are getting fucking quad shotted by someone just left and right. I mean, obviously, you guys are gonna work together, so you guys probably won't get into too many individual battles, but there will be certain situations where you're gonna be caught off guard. One kill in a competitive match can change a game. I don't think 343 is going to be able to actively monitor it. Is there an anti-cheat? Does Uncut have an anti-cheat on HGPC, or is that not like a thing?
I've heard mixed things, and this information is speculation on my part, so I don't want anyone to take this as gospel. I've heard mixed things. The way anti-cheat works is it's a program that runs in the background and scans for foreign programs, things that don't really belong. So if it's not on this approved list, once a cheat becomes recognized, it sends an alert and the anti-cheat goes off. Whether that's going on Vista or not, I know that they tried to implement the anti-cheat, but there were so many programs that were being denied and causing people problems. Like, you couldn't have Spotify up, you couldn't have a capture program up, those types of things.
Oh, wow.
It was so invasive and so poorly implemented that I think that they took it out and are still currently working on it. But yeah, absolutely. I think at this day and age, cheats are so accessible, and like I said, I think it's a sign of the times that I think your average gamer is just more insecure than when we were growing up and doing this kind of thing. It's like, you get on games like Counter-Strike and there's just cheating left and right. People are walling. People just have literally no shame. And so if your game is going to be on PC, it's absolutely imperative that you have an anti-cheat, and hopefully that's something that develops for Halo 2 Vista, and hopefully that's something that 343 has thought of. And I hesitate to say that because I know that they haven't, and I know that cheating is probably going to be fairly rampant. And plus, how do you scan for a 10-bit, it's one piece of code that macros a button, you know what I mean?
Correct.
How do you capture that? How do you identify that and then put it through your system so that your anti-cheat can actually scan? Your anti-cheat is only as good as how lazy the cheater is. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
because
correct.
if the cheater is active, if the cheater is actually playing the game and he's designing his own cheats, he's just going to keep designing things that don't set off the signals, and he's going to continue to cheat forever.
Yep. And there's really nothing that they can do about that outside of I guess banning the player. Like, I guess you could, like, the hardware IDs, you could ban that, but.
Yeah, I mean, you could IP ban someone, but that's like severe, and people just don't do that.
Yeah, I mean, they can always get like a
back banning is pretty severe. Yeah.
Speaking of bans, right? 343 has been banning content creators on Halo 5 and MCC.
Sure.
Farming lower tier players and quitting matchmade games are the primary reasons behind these bans. What's your take on these bans? And furthermore, how do they affect content creation moving forward for Halo? Because, I mean, they're banning everyone, from what I hear.
The thing that really set off the flags for me when I first heard about this was that I first heard about it from a person who was a quote-unquote grassroots content creator. And I'm not super familiar with that program or how it works, but the way I understood it when people were asking me about it in its infancy was that these are content creators that are basically being sponsored by 343, the company, to make content that will promote their games.
Yep.
And I first heard about this whole thing when Vitoed got banned. He was in the grassroots program, and he was the first person to kind of of popular note that fell under the ban hammer for smurfing and quitting games. I cannot stress enough how much of a mixed signal that is, that you're claiming to promote this person's content, but you're publicly banning them for how they're achieving their content. And
Correct.
it really turned my head about it. The thing that I want to be very clear about, my opinion, is that Smurfing is a reality of what we do as gamers. It has been around since, you know, how we were talking about montages back in 2006. It is, for as long as I've been playing Halo Online, which is literally the night that Halo came out on Xbox Live, I have been dealing with Smurfs. I have had Smurfs myself. In 2005, I had 4 Xbox Live accounts that I used exclusively for Halo 2 to, one, play with my friends from school who were worse than me so that I didn't have to sweat. And I had these accounts to play people of a worse rank so that I could specifically get clips. I had one account to where I just didn't do anything but play customs. It was my customs account. It was my I'm trying to meet pros and get on pros list accounts, you know?
Yep.
Because back in the day, 05, one was pro, so hopefully someone gets that. But smurfing is a reality. It becomes an issue when games hamstring their players and force them into boxes that they don't necessarily belong. So the problem with modern gaming and elo systems and ranked systems that don't have a social fallback is that if a player is very good, they're expected to be very good all the time. There's no in between.
Yep.
And that type of hamstringing, you are basically asking your community to create their own experiences. As a game developer, it is your responsibility to create an experience that is all inclusive. And that's something that the older Halos captured very well. Halo 2, Halo 3. You could play every type of play style on those games and not worry about people yelling at you or sending you hate mail, except for on occasion, obviously. But there were so many different ways to enjoy those games, and now what we have on Halo 5 is that after you do your placement matches, either you throw them so that the game thinks you're something you're not, or you play them honestly and you find yourself in a position to where you can only be one type of Halo player every time you log on to play.
And that was the story behind that. I mean, you know, when Vito tweeted that he got banned, I know that Joshua
Oh man,
yeah, he like replied to Vito and he basically told everyone that Vito D-ranked for a couple games, and he threw some matches to try to get placed, you know, a little bit lower. I'm not gonna get into the whole moral thing behind that. I mean, obviously D-ranking's bad, I get it, but the bottom line is, dude, you're gonna ban someone, especially someone who you're partnered with, because they threw a couple fucking games. Like, who the fuck cares, dude? Well, like,
I've been literally betraying for Snipe since I was 14 years old.
That's what I'm saying. And
Just
so, like,
something that happened.
does it make you an asshole? Maybe, but you don't deserve to
it
get
makes me
banned for that.
Yeah, I get it, you know?
Yeah, but
The thing that I really want to hammer home is that I don't condone smurfing. As someone who plays a great deal of Counter-Strike matchmaking, there is nothing more dissatisfying than playing a smurf. Because it creates a situation to where you have an unwinnable outcome.
Yep.
In a lot of ways, in certain games, smurfing is just as bad as cheating. I'm not trying to defend smurfing or say that it's okay, or say that because it's a reality of what we do that makes it all right. I just want to make sure that people are pointing their fingers in the right direction. And that's not at the smurfer or the smurfy or any sort of dynamic that includes the players. It is the game developer's fault for not having an infrastructure that supports different types of playing and different types of environments for different moods that players have.
you make really good points, but it's
Sure.
also the player too, right? The bottom line is people complain, and when people complain, that forces the developer to try to make a change. And that's the problem, is like these kids who are playing social, instead of playing ranked and trying to get better and trying to like progress through the ranks, they're playing social and they're at the bottom of the totem pole, so to speak. They complain on the on Halo Waypoint, on Reddit, on whatever outlet they have, Twitter, and
To the moon.
right, and they don't ever make the effort to try to get better, like by playing ranked and try to progress. And you know, everyone started out, just like you said earlier, everyone started out somewhere. Like, we all sucked at one point. I feel like people nowadays lack the, I don't want to say ability, because everyone has the ability to improve, but they lack the
Mental toughness,
Right.
fortitude,
the
dedication, motivation,
precisely.
any of the above.
Precisely. Like, they lack all that. They lack the backbone to try to get better. It's not, I don't know if it's them to blame or if it's their parents or like whatever it is, but people, they just have to understand that if you want to get better at something, you're going to have to fail. You're going to have to get raped. And I think it's like that with anything in life. I think that everyone's going to be bad at something and eventually you get better. I mean, I'm sure when you started playing Counter-Strike, you weren't the greatest player.
It was rough times.
Right. And, you know, eventually you get better. You learn how to use your mouse and keyboard, and you learn how to, you know, it's just how things work. That's like the natural progression. And I feel like a lot of people, they don't want to pay their dues. So they complain, and then it forces developers like 343 to implement hidden MMRs in social and to ban these montagers because, you know, it's considered griefing, I guess. So
Sure. I think the idealist within me, the way I want to contend that, or maybe play devil's advocate here, is that if you have a healthy enough atmosphere on your game, you're inevitably going to keep your population larger than when you are hamstringing your players the way they are in Halo 5. And so when you have that larger population, I feel like the player pool becomes much more diluted and it's less refined in terms of skills.
Yep.
So, again, I understand that Smurfing sometimes it just fucking sucks. But there is a degree at some point you have to say, is this a game that I want to play and get better at, or is this a game that I just want to give up and I'll go play another genre or another something? And that's another decision that 343 needs to make is do you want to make a game that can be competitive and that can have the depth to it to where the skill gap is healthy and you can learn this and become better in this way, and you're learning a lot in the very beginning and you're progressing very rapidly, and as you get better you can keep learning and you're taking these incremental steps. So to me it's on the developer to create a game that has a long-lasting worthwhile skill gap that people want to be involved in.
Yeah, and like I said, I think you made a really good point when you're talking about Halo 5 and you said you play your 10 placement games and then you're just kind of put somewhere into
and
playing.
Then you're that player.
Right, and then that's it. That's the end all be all. It's like if you're placed in fucking, I don't know, diamond or whatever, like you're gonna just play diamonds all day. And it's like, yeah, that's the best way to get better, but people don't always want to get better 100% of the time. Sometimes people are in a mood, like speaking personally, sometimes I'm in a mood to play MLG, so I'm gonna go play MLG. Sometimes I'm in a mood to just play Halo 2 and just try to go for clips. Sometimes I'm in a mood to play MIDI FFAs. That's all I want to do. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that if people are in a mood to play certain games or game types or maps or games, and I think that they should be entitled to. They shouldn't be bound by a rank or a title or whatever it is. And I think that you hit the nail on the head when you said that, in Halo 5, the placements, I'm sure the system works in different games like StarCraft and League of Legends and stuff, but not all games are the same. And Halo is a game where that doesn't really work, I feel like. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think your rank should be your identity, and this is not isolated to Halo 2. I think ranking systems are archaic, and at a high level, you absolutely need an MMR or a level of ELO. There's a verified science behind the ELO ranking system.
Yep.
I know that I'm mispronouncing that. I know it's named after a chess player, and I know that it was first implemented in chess. But there's absolutely a verified science to that, and that can absolutely work if all the people being ranked in that regard are all like-minded. If everyone, like if you take a small number of players and you say, these are the people who are elite, who only want to get on, they only want to grind, we're going to rank them in this way. There has to be some sort of system that can give gamers more of a personality rather than...
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, how all this ties into content creation or lack thereof is that when you start banning people, especially like Vito got a 2-week council ban, a 14-day council ban, and I think...
Big time.
Yeah,
it's a long time.
It is. I mean, especially for someone who, I don't know if he depends on this as his income or his sole income, but again, if you can't make content, you can't stream, what are you gonna do? I just don't understand the whole premise behind banning people. I think that what they're doing is it's counterproductive because you have a Halo Infinite coming out in, I think, 2020. So we're kind of in like a Halo drought, so to speak. There's not many people playing these games. You're doing our community a big disservice by doing that.
I've been very objective up until this point in the discussion. In terms of introducing my personal bias into injecting my personal bias into this discussion, custom games exist for a reason. If you're unhappy with your matchmaking experience, then you can absolutely create your own experience. I can't count the years where I got good at Halo and the years where I was most successful as a content creator and as a competitive player. It was on XBC. It was when we had no matching system. We only had custom games. We only had word of mouth. But you go back even farther than that. When I was, a quote unquote making social videos in 2009, there was still a level of absence in matchmaking because the population was so small.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What you would do is you would invite all the bad kids. You would create your own social. Yep. You just spam invite people on your list. You'd start. You've seen the game type before. It's Lockout Hill, unlimited time, and all the bad kids just rush and they have a great time because they think they're winning. And you start. You're spawning with BR snipe, and you just go to S2 or B2, and you just start farming right away. You know what I mean? If that's what you desire out of the game, it might not be something that I agree with on a fundamental level, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't go out there and achieve it for yourself. There's absolutely other avenues, and I cannot stress that enough.
Yeah, I mean, and something else to talk about too, as it pertains to how these bans affect this content creation. When you ban someone, like obviously you talk about like playing customs, and like that's a really good outlet, in my opinion. I remember specifically back in 09, 2010 on Halo 3 forum, people used to criticize people for playing customs. Like this, I'm sure you remember that too. There was a big discussion about inviting noobs to your game and try to make it look like multi-team or make it look like Social Slayer. Like in Halo 2, it wasn't really frowned upon. Like, well, it kind of was, but in Halo 3, it was really frowned upon to invite people to customs.
Sure. Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And that's obviously the counterpoint to what I was saying. There is a degree of a term I used earlier, manufacturing, that comes with doing that type of thing. And there is absolutely a stigma, and you're certainly right about that. So, that's kind of a really solid counter to what I was saying earlier. I do remember that pretty strongly, and
yeah,
it was a big deal. And
it was a big debate. People used to go on Bungie.net and they used to look up people's gamer tags, and they used to there were some fucking detectives on there.
Yeah, but I mean, we come from a stock. I mean, there are guys that used to play on XBC in 06, and they would play with pro tags. Their friends would.
Oh my god, yeah.
They would stage pro clips. Pro SC was the one guy that I'm thinking of.
Yeah. Speaking of montages, I mean, dude, you're a veteran, obviously, in the Halo scene, so you've seen the premiere of some of the greatest montages ever made, like Walshy's Final, Gunshots Montage 2, the Straight Open Montage, stuff like that.
Some great videos.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. In your opinion, and this is a very broad question, but what makes a great montage?
For me, when I'm ranking what's important in the video, to me, it all boils down to what we were talking about earlier when we were discussing social versus competitive gameplay. I want to see exciting gameplay. I want to see clips that are literally leaving me with my jock strap hanging around my neck. I want to feel like I've been undressed when I watch a video. I want it to be that fucking filthy.
Yeah.
But moving outside of those concrete factors, there is a degree of soul that you can achieve in videos that is something that I've always resonated with. Whenever I make a serious video, which admittedly isn't very often, I think the number of videos that I actually made where I was like, I want this to be a montage that people will really enjoy, and I want this to be a serious video. It's, it's Immortal Part 2, it's Immortal Part 3, it's Reaper, Lost Homes, which was a Lost in Time video that I did.
It's a great montage. The
few videos where I do that, I feel like there's a palpable difference. I feel like there's an emotional tension that is created, and that obviously sounds very cliche and very hip and very artsy, but I'm definitely drawn to videos that have that same quality. I'm drawn to videos to where I feel like I'm watching someone's experience on the game, and I'm sharing that with them. That's obviously very powerful, and that's something that I look for.
I think a Gunshots montage too, where BXR was the guy would snipe on us too, and you hear, I think it was Sundance, it happens quickly, like
it was quick to see, and then it gets super slow.
And then like when he gets the tack, and
bottom red on BCO7.
Yeah, it was bottom red, and he's like, these are the best players in the world. Like, you don't see that often. Like, it's stuff like that I could just hear that montage right now, like as it's going.
I think it's funny that you bring up Gunshot M2. Little Easter egg for some of the newer players out there: the MLG footage that we're talking about, his use of that infringed on copyright with USA, and they actually banned him for the 2007 season because of that montage.
Did they really? I didn't even know that.
In 2007, yeah. Gunshot M2 is my favorite video of all time. When you think about it as being as objective as I can, the level of gameplay for 2006, it far surpassed anything that came out, and the editing that Kiwi did for someone who wasn't like, people knew who Peridius was, and they knew that Peridius had been doing work with MLG, and he was quote unquote a professional editor, but people never viewed Kiwi that way. So for him to kind of come out of the woodwork and say, this is me, this is what I'm doing on this video, it was a super powerful video.
Oh yeah, I mean, and I even look at, I tell people all the time too, like Walshy's montage too, the editing was just phenomenal. Like, people look at it now and they're like, what the fuck is this? Because you're so conditioned to the times now. But you have to remember, I mean, Walshy's montage came out in 06 too as well. You look back at that and you look at the editing and, just the intro alone, like when you have like his figure and
you're
then
seeing
like,
that
his
bullet
name
zoom across top mid lockout, and you're like, what am I watching, boys?
Like you had the fucking 3D work, dude. It was amazing. And like, you see that bullet effect in so many montages after that.
Yeah.
It's just so many really good montages during that time.
I mean, that's a staple in every Call of Duty video I've ever seen. You know what I mean? Like, it's so commonplace these days. But yeah, I never really thought about it that way. Peridius was really the first person to coin that effect. That's something that's been used in.
It's the first thing I've ever seen. Yeah.
A lot of high-level videos have adapted that effect to some degree, for sure.
It was luck, and Abused Goat made some classic montages. For me too, like Furion's progression, one of the best edited montages and with the best soundtrack and the best quality, by the way, that I've seen during that era. Like when that montage came out, I was like, holy shit, this is really good. When you look at Fearon, he's pretty much the GOAT. He's pretty much the greatest content creator in Halo history, I would say. What he accomplished in the time, you know what I mean? Like, he was one of those people who, he actually made me go out and buy an ATI Wonder capture card. I had a Dazzle, and I'm trying to follow these fucking tutorials on H2F, and I'm like, dude, my shit ain't looking like that. So I had to go out and buy the fucking capture card. I still got it, too. Once the Pogs came out, it kind of changed the game, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah, just a couple words on Ryan. I mean, he's a product of being more motivated than everyone, being more groundbreaking than everyone, being obviously talented at the time, but also having this little bit of a luck factor. I'm not here to talk about his business, but he grew up with hysteria. He grew up, he went to high school as neighbor.
Washington State, yep.
So it's literally the perfect storm. He had the motivation, he had the you know, pun intended, progression. He had the dedication, he had the skill, and he had the connections, and that's what made him such an enjoyable person to watch, is because every video it felt like something new and exciting was happening. And all this content, even though he's using the same effects and he's using a lot of similar gameplay, he's creating something unique every time that he does it. That's what makes him so great. And the success that he enjoyed, it replicates itself, because he makes The Wicked End, and he makes videos for Factor, and all of a sudden he's this pro connection, and he made a video for Fear itself. And that continues into Halo 3 when he makes Neighbor Hysteria Dualtage. Absolutely. And that's, you know, my qualms with that as a video maker myself. Obviously, I hated the
intro.
Yeah, I firmly dislike that part. But when you get down to what that video is, that video was insane. Especially on a gameplay level. Oh man.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the outro was kind of like, you know, when he was like putting the headphones in the bag.
Yeah,
like,
I actually talked to Ryan about that.
Yeah.
He had just gotten that camera, and it was like, well, we kind of wanted to fool around with the camera, but we didn't really know how to use it. That's why it's like super shaky and like poorly thought out.
Yeah.
The scenery is very bad. But that's kind of the logic about it. He's like, well, we'll get this camera for this, and that's kind of how that whole thing played out.
There is a lot of great Halo content out there that gets very little views. You know, a couple hundred views per video, if that. As somebody who's been vocal in the past about feeling underappreciated as a content creator or like player, whatever it is, what advice would you give to other content creators who maybe feel this way, who maybe feel kind of trapped? What would you tell them?
I think the important thing is that it kind of goes back to what we were talking about before we started recording, is that there have absolutely been times where I felt personally underappreciated. The bigger issue, the underlying issue for me has always been that I feel like Halo 2 is underappreciated.
It is.
And so, yeah, so when you're creating content for these older games, you're automatically going to be putting yourself at a disadvantage. And the only thing that I really can contend with or respond to that idea with is that make sure you're doing it because you love it. It's not about being the best. It's not about achieving a bajillion subs. You know what I mean? Like, how long have we been doing this? And look where we are. You know, you have quadruple the amount of subs that I have, but compared to the more mainstream type people, you know, we just don't really hold a candle in it.
No, not at all.
It's an important marker to make, though, is that we talk about the things that we care about. And because we're so invested, we're personally invested in the content that we make, it makes our content more enjoyable. It makes it more relatable. It gives it a personality that mainstream generic content just will never have. And that's where our appeal comes from. And that's what makes our quote unquote fan bases, even though I don't objectively look at it like that. That's what makes the community who watches our videos so strong and so dedicated to watching our videos, is because we have that unique personality in our content.
I agree. And, you know, I look at my subscribers as just like, kind of like friends, just like fucking buddies, honestly.
They're buds. You know, for the most part, I think people understand that about us. But I've had some interactions with some people where it's like, oh man, Sk0ls, like, do you mind if I add you? Bud, if you lived across the street, I think I'd take you out for a beer right now. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of how I am. You know, I want people to play Halo. That's like, if you ever wanted to support me as a content creator or whatever you want to call me, a montager, the best thing you could do is be like, hey, Steve, let's play a game. I would love that. Nothing would make me happier than to have motivation to get on. And like I said, share my experience with someone else. I think that's the most powerful part of it all.
To extend on that, I'm blessed to have people even give a fuck about what I say in the first place, because it wasn't always like that. You know what I mean? This one guy named B. Dobbins, FTW, is a pretty big YouTuber, reached out to me a couple years back, and he wanted gameplay. He wanted clips or whatever. So I sent him a bunch of clips. He used them in a video. And yeah, I think he got me almost like 1,000 subs just off of my gameplay alone, which I was kind of blessed. I didn't think that it would blow up the way it did. So, you know, a lot of the people subbed to me from his channel, and I definitely appreciate that. And again, people, I make these fucking commentary videos like I'm a nobody.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
You know what I mean? Like, I make these videos. It's not like I'm fucking making $1 million. Like, it's not even for the money. Like, I've been on YouTube since '08, I think. My channel was created. And honestly, I don't make it for the money. Like, I upload videos just because it's something that I'm passionate about. I talk about the game and the issues that plague it because I'm passionate and I care about the game. I care about Halo 2, 3, and I want to see the game succeed. And me personally, I think that if you're making content for money, like you said, you got to do it because you love it. If you don't love it, then just get out of the game. Realistically, in this game, you're not going to make a ton of money. Like, you're not probably going to make any money, honestly. I mean, even if you stream, like the top streamers, like, unless you're like Snipe Down or someone like that, like, you're not going to make a ton of money. I mean,
yeah, you're definitely not going to find it on YouTube. Like, I can't speak for anyone else, but like, one, my channel is not even monetized right now. It hasn't been for well over a year, or almost 2 years now.
Yeah,
like, it's that insignificant. And monetizing your channel is a goal. It's the next step in progressing, developing your channel, and continuing the hobby. But it shouldn't be your only focus. You shouldn't make a Halo 2 video or a Halo 3 video or post an opinion video like I do sometimes with the mindset that, like, I'm gonna be fucking filthy rich. It is literally never going to happen. You might do it for 2 years and buy yourself a soda at the end of it all. Like, that's basically what it comes down to.
Yeah, and like, I was talking to Bo, or Hyena, Office Hyena, about him feeling undervalued, underappreciated. Because, again, he'll make a video and it won't do as well as his last one. And I feel like I understand that in a way, because, like, you want your next video to be great. It's like when Tom Brady, right? They ask him, what ring's your favorite? He's like, the next one. That kind of extends to a lot of things in life, but like videos primarily too, because you want your next montage to be better. Or like, you make a commentary and you want your next commentary to be better or get more views. You want to feel like you're improving. And I feel like Hyena, he has these unrealistic standards, because when he made Mastery, when he made that video did so fucking well and was liked by so many people and loved by so many people. And then he makes all these Halo 2 montages, and like you said, Halo 2 is a very underappreciated game, and his montages for Halo 2 did extremely well.
I mean, comparatively to the other stuff that's come out, absolutely.
I mean, you look at like Rukio stuff, right? Great montages, great clips. He has probably some of the best Halo 2 gameplay out right now, like you said, in the past couple of years. And what does he get on his mod? Couple hundred views?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a poor man's game.
Yeah, I mean, I've been subbed to him for quite some time now, and like, when he puts out a project, he spends a lot of time clipping, editing, and it's just, I feel terrible for him, because, not to mention, when you make a montage, if you're using music that's copyrighted, you're not making money off the videos. So
yeah,
even
you're automatically flagged, you're not getting striked, but it's money is. Well, people are making money. Your ads, you're still getting ads
you're just
on your channel, but it's going to the people who own the licensing. So.
Correct. So, I mean, really, if you're a montager, it's a lose-lose situation. You like, what happened with Campy when Campy got picked up by FaZe? It's probably not gonna happen to you. Realistically, Halo is just like,
say without a doubt, it probably will not happen to anyone else.
Right. That's. I mean, he was a one-off. That was definitely a one-time thing. I think Sk0ls hit the nail on the head. I mean, just, you got to do it. If you're gonna make Halo content, do it because you love it. Don't do it for anyone else, and don't do it because you want to try to make a living off of it or get noticed or get your name big. I mean, again, people, I'm blessed to be in a position where anyone gives a fuck what I have to say. Like, when I upload a video and people actually care, like, that's cool to me. And so that's why I do it. And like, Sk0ls, like, he does commentary as well, and he's very insightful, and people care what he has to say. Sk0ls isn't making the videos because he's getting paid, you know what I mean? People just like to hear him talk because he's insightful and he's been around for a long time, and people want to hear his opinion. So just do it because you love it. I mean, that's pretty much the best advice.
There's definitely a level of the motivation that I feel when I talk about, like, particularly when I was doing a lot of the MCC videos. I think that's when we started connecting a lot more on content. I didn't do those things because my opinion was popular. I didn't say those things because it was easy to say or it was the popular thing to say. I said it because those were the things that needed to be said. And as a community, I felt like we weren't voicing our opinion in the right way.
Right.
And so I did the only thing that I knew how to do. I pled my case to the community. That's what a lot of my content is just saying, this is my opinion. I want to know if you guys feel this way too. This is stuff that we need to talk about. It's not about being right. It's not about being wrong. It's not about any of that. It's about getting the ball rolling. It's about creating a community to where we can talk about these things and have discourse, reach conclusions that will make us a better community or help us give better feedback to the developers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what my commentaries are about. It's not 343 probably doesn't even listen to my fucking videos. Like, the bottom line is, I mean, it's all about creating conversation, and it's all about getting you guys talking and getting to a point where people are, it's kind of like creating a hub for people, like like-minded people who just want to come and feel like they belong or feel like they could relate to someone. Because I feel like, I'm not bashing any YouTubers, any Halo YouTubers, but there's people who make YouTube videos about like Master Chief's birthday, you know what I mean? Not that that's bad content, because those guys obviously have a lot of fucking fans, and those guys get thousands of likes on their videos, and you know, I guess to some people that content's great. For me, I feel like talking about the pressing issues.
I hesitate to use the term unsung hero because I've never really thought of myself as a hero or anything like that. But
Right.
it's easy to make that easygoing, fun-loving, family-friendly content when you belong to a community that has enjoyed so much success and is still continuing to enjoy success. But with Halo, there's so much wrong with our community. There is so much wrong with our games. There is an inherent flaw in the way that 343 is approaching their development of future Halos. That you cannot enjoy those peace times. And I would love to sit down and talk about top 5 favorite pros, or top 5 montages, or top 5 this, or top 5 generic content inserted here. I don't want to make that content because we have more important shit to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, and
that's what my content is. I want to talk about important stuff. I want to get this stuff out in the open and hopefully create a solution.
Yeah, and that's the whole premise behind these videos, where you just talk to each other and just kind of see what's going on. We've also spent a majority of our lives playing this game, and I feel like it's at a point where we're so invested that we kind of have to talk about this, because I mean, it's easy to just say fuck it, right, and just walk away and go do something else. But I mean, when you're so invested in something or someone, it's kind of like, I don't like to make this analogy, but it's like when people are in bad relationships, like domestic abuse, and people are like, well, just walk away from it. Like, it's not that fucking easy. You know what I mean? Like,
too much is sick.
Yeah,
too
like
much time invested, like you said.
Right. You know, it's like, dude, I've been playing since 05, and you know, the summer of 05, and I can't just say fuck it and walk away, because in the back of my head, and it's kind of fucked up, because like, I wish that I did more years ago than I did. Like, I wish I recorded more. I wish I got more clips. I wish I recorded more live gameplay. I wish I did more commentaries. There's so many things that I wish I did, that it's like, I feel like if I walk away now, I'm gonna regret it later on. So I might as well fucking do it now while I still can, because eventually there's gonna be a point where there is no more Halo 2 or Halo 3 online. I might as well do it now.
I feel like I'm in the same boat. I feel very pod committed when it comes to Halo. Sure, I may not be active now. I may not have played in a couple months, but Halo is my game. I've always styled myself.
Yeah, always.
I'm not a gamer. I'm a Halo player. You know what I mean? I've always kind of donned that moniker.
The next question is, you know, and this kind of ties into everything we're just talking about, is obviously MCC has a plethora of issues, and I just seen your montage, the one you just put out. It's your quote-unquote final MCC montage, and it's kind of sad to see, but obviously MCC, though, has, on the Xbox platform, it has a plethora of issues, and you haven't played MCC consistently in years, I would say. What, if anything, at this juncture can be done to bring players like you back to the Xbox platform?
It's a tough question. I ask myself this all the time, and it's like, because there's obviously a level of ease when you're dealing with MCC that you just don't have on Vista, because it is a third-party program.
Yep.
We don't have the things like friends list. We have to go through the Discord to get games and all that type of stuff. But a completely refined version of Halo 2 is absolutely something that still appeals to me. I don't think Vista has achieved that yet. And while I think Vista is miles ahead of where we are on MCC,
It is.
It doesn't mean that things are perfect. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that I have the experience that I've had. And whether what I'm looking for is something that is capturable or not, I'm really not sure. I'm not sure if you presented to me a completely OG revamp that is 100% true to the games that we played on XBC, on the original version of Halo 2, online with a friends list, with a matching system, more than a matching system, an in-depth ranking system like what we were talking about, a rank S where elite players can play together in different tier systems. Even if you had all that, I'm not sure I can go back to playing full time, because I just don't know if the magic is there. We made the analogy about relationships and domestic abuse. Returning to Halo 2 by that same stroke is kind of like returning to the girl who's just been cheating on you for years and years and years.
Yep.
At what point, the love is there. You're always going to have that love for that woman. But at what point do you have to say, look, for me, I have to have my own self-respect, and I just have to say no. You know what I mean? Until MCC becomes better than Vista, to be clear, there is no reason you should play a worse version of the game.
I completely agree with that. And
I'm not trying to be. I wasn't trying to,
Oh, no. Like, you're 100% right. I mean, the thing is, and I've said this before, is Uncut actually gives a fuck about Halo 2. And that's the main difference between 343 and I've told 343 too. They need to hire Uncut.
Well, I would.
Well,
well, the brakes on Sean there. That boy's got a lot of pep. That boy's got a lot of pep on him.
I mean, the thing is, when you have devs who give a fuck about the game, it actually makes the game better. Like, it's, kind of obvious,
Absolutely.
right? But
I spent years playing MCC.
Right.
I played it on release night. I installed it. I played it for years, and I just felt like I was getting screwed habitually, just over and over again. I felt like 343 had some personal vendetta against me. That's how, like, contrary their beliefs ran to mine. You know what I mean? It actually felt personal, the level of disservice that they did to the game. And with Vista, like I said, Vista is not a unicorn by any stretch. It's no beauty. But it's one, it's better, and two, you have the guys like Uncut, you have these ambassadors, you have this open forum, you have this discussion that is not driven by the popular vote, that's not driven by the masses that are just, screaming mindlessly about stuff that really doesn't matter. There is a level of reasonable feedback that you're giving to these people, and it actually gets read, it actually gets listened to.
Correct.
And that's to me, it's a no-brainer.
Personally, I think when the game updated in August of 2018, I think they did a lot of damage to the game because I was kind of like conditioned or like accustomed to the timing of the double shot, RBX, stuff like that prior to the update. So like the original MCC. I didn't like it. Obviously, coming from OG Halo 2, I thought it sucked. I thought the game was very, very different, but I eventually got used to it. I was kind of conditioned. And then they changed it again with the August 2018 update. They made it a little bit slower. It kind of feels like you double shot slower and you RBX slower, and then they also fucked up BXR reloading, so that doesn't work.
Sure.
What can be done at this point for MCC Halo 2 if the devs said, you know what, we want to bring these guys back to the game? What can be done in the short term that would make you consider coming back? Like, what are some glaring issues that you experienced on MCC that should potentially be addressed?
Well, the hit registration was always the number one factor for me.
Mm-hmm.
I never felt like I was... there is absolutely a placebo effect here, too. People are more severe on MCC than they probably should be. But there's something unnatural feeling about MCC Halo 2 that I could just never wrap my hands around. And you discussed it a little bit with the timing. It's a combination of a lot of these things. The timing that you discussed, the registration that I talked about, the feeling of 60 FPS versus 30 FPS. Mm-hmm. There's so many different factors. The thing that bothers me the most when I get on that game, it feels wrong to me, and it's in a lot of ways it's indescribable. So I'm just gonna leave it at that.
I know for me in 2014, when I first got MCC and I played Halo 2, yeah, the shot registration was horrible. They ended up kind of sort of fixing it, but it was still not where it should have been, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that 100%.
The fire rate was a lot faster. Carbine was a lot faster. The BR shot a lot faster. And so you had to sort of compensate for the fast fire rates. You had to like double shot faster. And like eventually I got to a point where I was able to double shot with some consistency. And I was okay with that. And I eventually, like the audio, for example, how the fucking shit crackles when there's so much going on in like one confined area. Just stuff like that, in my opinion, that always ruined montages for me. Like, I can't. The only way to really negate that is to do a full audio replacement or just turn it down. You turn the volume down, you won't notice it as much. But it's kind of bullshit because you look at old Halo 2 clips on 360 and the original Xbox, you look at how clean the audio was, and it's like, well, something like that, I don't see how the fuck that can't be fixed. But again, I'm not a game dev, so I don't know that. Like, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, it doesn't feel like Halo 2. I don't know. Does H2PC feel a lot different than MCC, like in terms of like the aiming or the bullet reg or like?
I think Vista right now, I haven't played in some months, so I can't speak to the most updated patch. When I was playing a lot though, it felt more natural. There were certain things about the coding that I could just never get around. We couldn't fix the spawn differences, those types of glaring issues.
Yeah.
But the smaller stuff, like the stuff that you're talking about, you absolutely described it better than I did. It's a lot of the little stuff that made me feel like I was in a dream, or like I was,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it had this feeling of just insincerity, just because of the culmination of all those little things not really working the way that they're supposed to. And absolutely, when you talk about Vista and MCC, it is not the same thing as OG. There are different. The spawn system feels different. those types of more severe things that affect the meta. I'm not sure, like you said, you're not a developer, I'm not a developer. I'm not sure how we get back to that, but I want to choose to believe that Vista is the front runner in making those types of changes happen. Your question was, what can MCC do? What can 343 do as a developer to get someone like me back on the game?
Yep.
And to be fair, I just don't think you can.
I mean, the one thing that I will say, and I think the saving grace for MCC opposed to Vista is that MCC is always going to have an advantage when it comes to population and I guess accessibility, because most people aren't going to want to download. The main reason I haven't played H2PC is because, you know, for me it's always been like a capture issue. Like, I have my capture card. It's so much easier to just record on my Xbox than it is for me to record locally on my computer. Not that I can't do it, because obviously you can just, if you open OBS, do it. It's pretty much the same thing. It's like the same concept. For me, it was always kind of weird. So I just kind of prefer the Xbox platform in that sense. But
no, you're absolutely right in that regard. In terms of like the interface on MCC is to me a disaster. It's confusing. It's like not intuitive to use. But it's still a user interface. It's still a built-in friends list. You can still do everything within the game. You don't need any third-party software like Discord to get games going.
Correct.
The level of ease is going to be something that, until Vista finds a way to contend with that, MCC is always going to be the dominating factor in this discussion, because they have that level of playability on a UI, on a construct basis that Vista just doesn't have right now.
I know, like, one of the biggest gripes with the Halo 2 community back in 2014 was there was no join in progress for custom. And that was terrible for midship of a phase. They ended up adding that 4 years too late. You know, we finally got it, and you know, that's pretty amazing. But I mean, there's even flaws with that now. I mean, you can't boot people mid-game, so you have to end the game. You know, if you invite a bunch of people, like a 4v4, and you know 9 people join, you gotta end the game. So there's pros and cons. Personally, I think for Halo 2, if you want to play the best version of Halo 2 right now, definitely H2PC. I mean, it has the developers, the full backing, and it has some of the best players left in Halo 2. So that's definitely the place you want to go if you want to, you know, get games. And you know, it has a server browser, and there's all types of really good stuff. And you know, Uncut even told me he was working on a ranking system too, which would be really cool. MCC is always going to have the platform in terms of like accessibility for players. So I think that it would probably be worth it for them to hire someone like Uncut, maybe put them out of business, and you know, have Uncut manage Halo 2 for the game. Like, I know
you're a community ambassador.
What I don't understand is they're outsourcing the work anyway. Like, 343 isn't actually doing it. Like, I think the team working on MCC is like a outsourced team. So like, why not 1099 Uncut?
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, just fucking pay Uncut and let him do his thing. I mean, Uncut told me through like YouTube comments that he actually, or no, it's Discord actually. He told me that he suggested things to 343 to like little tweaks to like fix the aiming in Halo 2, and you know, and they just didn't listen to him. I mean, this was obviously like a year ago, I think, but I mean, it just kind of speaks volumes about 343 not listening. Like, dude, this guy's running H2PC, which is the most successful, you know, Halo 2 right now on the market. And you guys aren't listening. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. I mean, even Gregor, the guy who just got hired, you know, was on H2PC. So
there's a degree of impact that Uncut absolutely has in the Halo 2 Vista community. The problem is that some of the changes that game has undergone are not necessarily foolproof fixes. It's more like putting band-aids on a wound.
And can you speak on that? Because like, as a
absolutely. I'm more than happy to elaborate. I want to just finish continuing my point. The band-aids, in my opinion, happen to work very well. I have no problem with that, and the productivity of the game, the way the game works as a result of those band-aids, is absolutely something that works. The more specifically what I'm talking about, the big debate was how do we fix shot registration within the nature of the game that we have. And so Vista's response to that was to ramp up shot speed. So the BR, we largely think of the Halo 2 BR as hit scan, but there is still a travel time.
Yep.
So the way that we fixed, quote unquote, fixed registration was ramping up bullet velocity.
Correct.
So that there was less travel time, so that the shots felt like they were hitting better. And there was I think OG runs on 400 for whatever marker they use as their velocity. 400 was the velocity they were using for OG back in 2004 when the game was released. And you know, the game is obviously significantly different. Running on 60 FPS obviously has a lot to do with this as well. So it started out, we doubled the shot speed to deal with the FPS changes. So double the FPS, double the shot changes. We were playing on 800. 800 felt much more natural. And keep in mind, comparing this to MCC, which has none of the changes.
Correct.
So we started out doubling it, and this is kind of what I was alluding to when we were talking about how I was kind of making this argument as these players were preparing to play on land that, like, look, don't be surprised if it isn't what you think it is. You're not shooting laser beams over here. But that's one example of, do we kind of find a way to fix the problem? Absolutely. Did it work? Yes, there was a lot of disagreement, and yes, there was a lot of humming and hawing and people saying, well, that's not how I remember it. Despite the LAN gameplays that I posted, despite all that. The issue is that while it works for us as a grassroots community on PC that's community run and community developed, is that the kind of fix that a AAA studio is looking for?
At least Uncut is trying, and like can't fault them for trying. So like, yeah, I mean.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't want anyone to get the wrong impression.
Yeah.
I've known Uncut for, I've been playing with him for, going on 8 years.
Yeah, I mean,
I've known and interacted with him for a long time. Got nothing but respect for him.
Yeah, I mean, he's a great guy, and he's someone who actually gives a fuck about Halo 2 and the people who play it. So I think that he deserves a lot of credit in that regard. You mentioned that they probably wouldn't be looking for band-aids like 343, but I mean, really, I think a lot of what they're doing right now is band-aids. I mean, they just updated like the aiming settings in MCC, and like they made it to where you could change your sensitivity in 0.5 increments. You could change your dead zones, stuff like that, and that's kind of a band-aid within itself, because instead of testing in-house and trying to find out what the fuck's going on with the aim, they just threw a bunch of settings at us and said, "Here, figure it out." I think
that's absolutely a fair point, and you're absolutely right. And at the end of the day, a band-aid is a band-aid. If it works, it works.
You have any final thoughts, plugs?
Yeah, I mean, I had a great time. I love talking about this stuff, and this is a lot of stuff that I had actually slated to start making content about. So it worked out really perfectly for me. I kind of had the easy thing. I got to come in here and shoot my mouth off for a couple hours, and you have all the hard work of actually pushing the content out. So, but in all seriousness, I really do appreciate you. PodKosT, the gentleman who I've been speaking with, I cannot say enough about him and his content. He is the empirical data. He is the science behind my shoot first, ask questions later type content. So absolutely, I want to shout you out for everything that you do and providing the undeniable science that makes people, that forces people to look at these things as real, genuine issues and not just speculation by some, rampant nostalgic moron like myself.
Yeah, I mean, like what I will say too, before I wrap this up is, Sk0ls, I highly suggest you guys go to his channel and check him out. He's going to be making more content in the near future, and he's got some of the best Halo 2 content in the last several years. I mean, in all honesty, the guy, he's put out so many videos. Just check him out. You guys won't regret it, especially if you love Halo 2. If you love Halo 2, I would highly recommend. So make sure you guys check him out.
All the OGs, all the real ones. I know I've not been around too recently, but I respect you guys. Tony, MVC, Hurricane, J-Mos, Fake Titties, Havoc. Love that you guys are still out there grinding. Appreciate you guys.
All right, so that's the end of the podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you guys want me to talk to anyone in particular, feel free to comment down below. Let me know. Ideally, I would like to talk to people in different communities and cover all bases and kind of use these videos as a hub that 343 can use moving forward, because I think a lot of people don't have a voice, and I feel like a lot of people are often kind of lost in the crowd, so to speak. So to get people from different communities on and talk to them about their grievances would be really cool to do. As always, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure you guys like, favorite, comment, subscribe. Love you guys. Peace.